Hello everyone, my name is Tom Keith, and today I'd like to present to you on the earlier phases of what I'm calling the Mernda VR Project, an initiative which is forming part of my PhD project at the University of Melbourne and is funded by a student engagement grant from the university. Digital applications in archaeology have come to form an integral component of modern archaeological practice, with a vast array of applications ranging from technical analysis, such as GIS mapping of sites, to 3D modelling of objects to display to the general public. On this slide, you can see a digital elevation model of the Plenty Valley in Mernda, which I've also mutilated to make into a stylish slide background, and an example of a 3D scanned artefact from the British Museum's Sketchpad page, just one of many such examples of carefully digitised colonial plunder. Today it can be hard to imagine any major excavation taking place without the use of GIS, digital photography, and even photogrammetry, and these applications lend themselves to both scholarly interpretation of excavations and engagement with the general public. Digital reconstructions are one such avenue for engagement. Here on the left, you can see a digital reconstruction of Olympia, circa 150 Common Era, produced by Melbourne's own With the Domes VR, under the direction of Melbourne University alum Dr. Simon Young. And on the right, you can see a reconstruction of the interior of the house of the Ara Massima in Pompeii, created by the team of the Tesseract Centre of the University of Arkansas. The most immediately relevant application for such reconstructions is to improve comprehensibility. Even the best studied, excavated, understood, and preserved archaeological sites are shadows of their original states. I am not of the opinion that it is reasonable to expect the layperson interested in history to view the ruins on the left, the remains of Trajan's Forum in Rome, and infer from them that they may likely have once appeared as the structure on the right, this reconstruction put together by the University of California, Los Angeles. Such applications are of course a continuation of the earlier tradition of artistic representations of archaeological sites, such as the beautiful draftsmanship of Ernst Curtius depicting the Temple of Zeus in Olympia, seen here on the left, or the famous scale model of Imperial Rome, commissioned under Mussolini, seen here on the right. But digital reconstructions hold the potential for greater accuracy, with the ability to precisely measure and duplicate elements within 3D modelling software, and the possibility of greater immersion, with the inclusion of textured elements taken directly from life, and the ability to display them in an immersive media such as virtual reality headsets, or by the inclusion of associated audio. One criticism which has been levied against the current state of VR reconstructions of archaeology is that they often chase the wow factor, occasionally to the detriment of accuracy. Such criticism may certainly be levied against more popular related applications, such as the Assassin's Creed video game series. While of course these games make no claim to being an educative experience, and are simply independent commercial projects, they do occupy a grey area of quasi-accuracy, inhabiting an uncanny valley of being well researched and constructed, but taking artistic license wherever they see fit, making no distinction between accurately reconstructed elements and pure fantasy. On the left here, you can see a fairly accurate representation of the Artemisian bronze depicted in-game, although they have annoyingly made it huge, probably about 10 times its size. While on the right, you can see an art historically, horribly anachronistic, and frankly silly depiction of Kronos. The challenge such applications represents is muddying the waters of accurate digital reconstructions of heritage, and I am of the opinion that it is important for more scholarly or academic applications to distance themselves from media such as this. Don't chase the wow factor too far, because in any case you won't be able to compete. In acknowledgement of these concerns, the London Charter was developed to establish international standards and principles of computer-based visualizations of heritage, and the Principles of Seville was subsequently established to apply and adapt the London Charter principles specifically to archaeological heritage materials. Authenticity, historical rigour, and transparency are particularly prominent in the Principles of Seville, which emphasise the importance of acknowledging and making clear to audiences when accuracy is not available and creative license has been taken, and recognising and representing all phases of history, not only selectively curated, idyllic splendour. There are projects that seek an alternative goal than the depiction of built architectural heritage. Projects such as the Visualizing Angkor project of the SensiLab team of Monash University, seen here on the left, are using procedural engines to predict the travel paths for people who populated the region of Angkor. Projects such as virtual song lines, seen here on the right, are attempting to use the technology to represent more intangible aspects of heritage, such as Indigenous Australian people's relationship to the land. Acknowledging the principles of Seville and considering how virtual reality can be utilised to display the archaeological heritage of smaller, more humble, but nonetheless significant sites, we return now to Mernda and the Mernda VR project. The intent of the project is to reconstruct in virtual reality two phases of Mernda's history: the landscape of the region prior to European colonization and the site under the management of Moses Thomas circa 1855. The site chosen as the focus of the reconstruction is a small cottage, occupied by the attendant of the nearby mill on the Plenty River. The cottage was the focus of a 2015 excavation undertaken by Heritage Victoria, which received a good amount of local publicity, with tours from local schools, and reporting in both the Herald Sun and the Northern Star Weekly, a local publication. Jeremy does like a photo op, doesn't he? The excavation was not simply a research project, but an opportunity to involve the public with their own archaeological heritage. So why Mernda? As noted before, the site was part of the public engagement program under Heritage Victoria, and so of course it's good to work from an existing base. But more than that, Mernda is an excellent test case for investigating the efficacy of the technology as a means of public engagement. The site itself is no longer open and visible to the public, as you can see from the satellite images on the slide here, the left from 2015 and the right from 2018. Sadly, I couldn't go visit myself due to quarantine restrictions, but from what I can discern, there appears to be no signage or really any indication the site was here at all. It can no longer serve as a learning tool for the general public, outside of the brief newspaper articles, or the excavation report, which wasn't really written for the public in any case. Mernda as a region is swiftly growing in population, and as part of the Melbourne 2030 strategy is expected to double in population. Legacy satellite imagery shows the degree to which the region has changed, both in terms of the character of its landscape and also as an influx of residents settles in the region with no pre-existing connection to the local heritage. Here you can see clearly the state of change between Mernda in 1984 compared to 2016, with much more development on the way. The region has a long and substantial history, acting as an important source of food and water resources for both early settler Melbourne populations and pre-1788 Wurundjeri Wurrung people. Landscape surveys have produced evidence indicating Wurundjeri use of the region, particularly in the Plenty Valley itself, extending back for at least 5,000 years, participating in both social ceremonies and diverse use of a wide variety of natural resources, such as the bark of the local red gums. After the region was colonised, it became an important source for both flour and water to the development of Melbourne, with the land holdings of Moses Thomas being closely involved in both. You can see the cottage itself just on the right-hand side of the aqueduct photograph, this being the Yan Yean Aqueduct, an important source of water to Melbourne. The aim of the project is to develop a downloadable virtual reality experience depicting the history of this important site, with an emphasis on how the landscape was used and modified by both early European settlers and pre-1788 Wurundjeri peoples. Important food crops and other natural resources will be depicted in virtual reality using a combination of GIS, archaeological, historical, and art historical information to present an educated and educative impression of the significance of the land, providing access to this experience to the local schools, libraries, and cultural centres. Here are just a couple of examples of artworks which may be used to interpret the nature of the landscape in different periods. As an example, the Murnong or yam daisy, technically Microceras lanceolata, was an important food source for Indigenous Australians, and is believed to have been carefully managed using fire stick farming to promote appropriate growth. Here you can see an example of the process of transforming a real-world example into a digital replica using the Blender modelling software. Starting with the plant itself and taking high-quality photographs in a lightbox, These photos are imported into Blender, with close-ups of the leaves used to create and texture models. Variations of the leaf models are created for a more natural appearance. And a randomizer modifier is used to create natural appearing groups of leaves. This final model can be checked against reference images to ensure accuracy. And a randomizer is used again to create a variety of models. The eventual intent of the project is to create a wide variety of such models and distribute them across a reconstruction of the landscape based on digital elevation models, with varying distributions of species based on the changes of landscape units. The cottage itself will be reconstructed based on the excavation remains, excavated materials, photographic evidence, and local comparanda. While a variety of platforms are being considered as media to display the 3D modelled panoramic reconstructions, an important element will be the inclusion of interactive learning elements. As an example, the software program 3D Vista, shown on screen, was designed primarily for tourism and real estate, but has been adapted for educational experiences. Clickable hotspots can be added over key elements of the environment, such as the Mernda plant, for instance, opening pop-up windows providing additional information as well as close-up vision of the models or photographs of the real-life plant. Quiz elements can be incorporated, or the experience may be set such that only after all hotspots have been noticed will the experience conclude. All of this can be adapted to flat screen experiences or viewed within a headset to maintain immersion. Finally, a combination of interviews and surveys are planned to receive participant feedback on their experience, to assess the practicability of such projects as means of public engagement which are cost-efficient, learning effective, engaging, shareable, and preservable. Thank you very much. I'd be delighted to field any questions that you have or take any feedback that you have to offer. As I mentioned, this is very much in its early stages, and so feedback would be particularly useful, and just anything you can provide would be appreciated. Thank you.